Sexuality and gender are complex concepts that have been altered by Canada's current society, limiting our understanding and expression of these identities. When the British and French first arrived in Canada, the ideologies of some Indigenous communities involving the freedom of gender and sexual identity changed, as European worldviews were forced onto Canada. Along with many other European ideologies that contrasted Indigenous beliefs was the concept of procreation, with any identity as not cisgender or heterosexual being seen as the natural. This perspective of sexuality and gender, even if it has changed, still exists in Canada today. Aiyyana Maracle, a multi-disciplinary Mohawk Indigenous artist, focused on challenging Canada's modern framework of gender and sexuality. Maracle's existence and transformation were based on the continuum of her community's Indigenous beliefs, identifying as a transformed woman who loved women, and therefore constantly having to battle the current gender and sexuality standards of Canada throughout her life. For Aiyyana Maracle's findings shown in her work, how can Canada's perspective of sexuality and gender be changed, and how does this affect all Canadians? Canada has improved its standards for gender and sexuality from early European ideologies, as there are no longer laws limiting gender and sexuality expression. However, there are still issues of how the country perceives gender and sexuality in a way that negatively impacts Canadians. Statistics Canada's research on gender-based violence revealed that people of sexual and gender minorities are more likely to face discrimination and violence. Their research has shown this usually results in harmful repercussions such as poor mental health, resorting to substance abuse, and contemplating suicide. The Canadian Women's Foundation, through their collected research, also discovered how most women experience sexual assault at least once in their lifetime, with Indigenous women more likely to be targeted. This demonstrates how Eurocentrism has been a key factor in gender-based violence. It determines how we perceive gender and sexuality in a way where certain genders are thought to have more power than others, resulting in violence, discrimination, poor mental health, and even death, impacting many gender and sexual minorities. Maracle's concept of decolonizing gender and sexuality does not only benefit LGBTQ+ and Indigenous Canadians. Her teachings can also help to eliminate gender-based violence for the entirety of Canada, by separating our society from these uneven power dynamics and expectations for genders that have stemmed from Eurocentrism. Maracle described gender and sexuality as being like a circle. On one end of the circle is male, and the other female, with various identities being in between the two. Through her work, she has demonstrated how this circle of gender and sexuality has been restrained by Eurocentrism. Maracle's A Journey in Gender documented her life and experiences with gender, sexuality, and Indigenous culture in a nation that revolves around Eurocentric standards. Through addressing her own experiences, she analyzed how gender should be viewed for relationality and functionality, rather than initial identity. Maracle also stated how some Indigenous communities have treated sexuality and gender differently since colonization, criticizing the existent variancy of these identities being related to their cultures. Through recalling her life experiences, Maracle demonstrated how Eurocentrism has led to the discrimination of many genders and sexualities, disregarding Indigenous ideologies that have existed for many years. Maracle's performances, like her act at Grunt Gallery, also showed her defiance against Eurocentrism in Canada. This performance had Maracle decorated with intricate patterns on her body, as she sung an Indigenous song, and listed many words that can be interpreted as being related to the pain and joy of being a transformed Indigenous woman in a country influenced by colonialism. With this performance, she defied Eurocentrism by expressing that her identity would not conform to Canada's current standards, and stated that we should strive for the death of colonialism and the rejuvenation of Indigenous beliefs. Death in the Shadow of the Umbrella was another performance by Maracle that criticized the treatment of trans women within the trans community and society. By the text written along the wall, the umbrella labeled with various trans identities, and the chalk outline on the ground labeled with the term transsexual woman, Maracle states that the lives of trans women are disregarded by the public. She infers that currently, their deaths have more of an impact on society than their lives. Maracle also encouraged the acceptance of her own identity as a transformed woman by welcoming people to embrace her body through writing on her. Through Death in the Shadow of the Umbrella, Maracle challenged Canadians' Eurocentric views towards trans women. Maracle's work not only criticized the hatred and discrimination directed towards Indigenous and LGBTQ+ people, she encouraged that all Canadians should strive to defy Eurocentric standards to freely embrace gender and sexuality. Many scholars have had similar concepts like Maracle's towards gender, sexuality, and post-colonialism, proving further the relevancy of her concept of the decolonization of gender and sexuality. Like Maracle, Abel R. Gomez discussed the ramifications of colonialism that limit gender and sexuality, stating that our current society can adapt aspects of Indigenous culture into how we view various identities. Sarah Ahmed investigated how queer identities disarray and reorder social relations by not following standard paths for identity, associating the concept of orientation with both queer studies and phenomenology. Ahmed's concept supports Maracle's theories of the fluidity of sexuality and gender. Both Maracle and Ahmed believe that gender and sexuality are limitless, and that we can move towards or away from different identities. Bell Hooks has similar examinations to Maracle's acceptance of sexuality and gender differences in relation to intersectionality, as she stated that the discrimination of genders has a connection to other factors, such as ethnicity, class, religion, and imperialism. Hooks stated that women experience further discrimination based on how various other forms of identity and social factors interconnect to their identity as a woman. Like Maracle, Hooks says that current views of sexuality and gender are affected by many intersectional aspects of our lives, which needs to be accounted for when examining the cause of gender-based discrimination. Amartya Sen also addressed the connection of identities to the violence within society. Sen theorizes how the prejudice and discrimination within society is created from a place of misunderstanding. He challenges the reductionist division of people by race, religion, class, and various other identities, as through this division, he argues that we have separated humanity. Maracle's statement of decolonizing gender is similar to Sen's analysis, as she infers that because of Canada's adaptation to Eurocentrism, there is a lack of acceptance for diverse identities. Throughout her entire life, Maracle demonstrated how Eurocentrism affects the understanding and acceptance of sexuality and gender for all Canadians. She revealed how everyone is at risk of discrimination if they defy the normalized Eurocentric expectations set in place for these identities. To be seen as a certain gender or sexuality, we are expected to express ourselves in a specific way, and depending on what identity we are, puts us at risk of facing violence, erasure, and prejudice. Maracle's concept of decolonizing gender and sexuality changes these identities for Canada by connecting back to Indigenous ideologies that believe that the freedom of choice for gender and sexuality are sacred aspects of life. By understanding that our gender and sexual identities do not need to be reliant on the Eurocentric standards of procreation and specific gender norms, gender-based discrimination can be erased from Canada's society. Canadians can then be united through the acceptance of individuality, rather than being separated by the fear of differences.